Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from Terplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terplex Ag. Visit terplexag.com.
Hello, welcome to Williams and Blum here on the 9th of June. It is a Sunday night. This is as late as we've recorded in a long time. I thank Blum for being flexible with that. We'll get into it. I want to thank our sponsors at Mechdyne, the wonderful Mechdyne Corporation. I believe we're going on, 4 years now? Where they brought us Williams and Blum? Yeah, because it was the pandemic that June when we started this. We're like on our 4-year anniversary here. We couldn't do it without them. And I don't just say that. Like, literally the entire reason we're doing this podcast is because Mechdyne's Chris Clover, it was his idea. and we started doing it regularly, and then we added Wednesday to it, and we love our friends over at Mechdyne. And I'd love to see some more of you go and work for them. A lot of our listeners have gotten jobs there, and they love hiring Iowa Staters. It is Mechdyne. That's Mechdyne.com, enabling discovery. We're in the Wild Rose Casino Studios. And, of course, I am not sipping on a Cody Road bourbon tonight. I need to be. I'll bring in Brent Blum here, as I have been, again, kind of a late show for us. Not nearly as late as we used to go. But I have been trying to put my entire basement back together today after we got flooded out a couple weeks ago, and it is just my back. I feel so old right now. My back is just roasting from just lifting and all that good stuff. But thanks for recording late with me tonight. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Played some golf this weekend. Played some golf last week and played some golf this week. It's golf season, baby.
Yeah, it seems like you're living a rough life right now. The Clone's got all the transfers in. The portal's closed. I did donate $100 to the We Will Collective tonight. Did you hear about that?
I did hear about that. Do we see? Can you find the photo? Let's check your producing skills real quick.
Oh man!
So
I can do that if you'll talk for a minute.
Yeah, I got you. So we're over at the neighbors again. It's no lie. Chris and I live 5 doors down from each other.
Yes, this is all true.
The house in between, also great cyclones in TJ and Megan, and the kids were all swimming over there today in a sprinkler, where they call it a splash pad.
Splash pad, yeah.
And somehow a wager got put on the table, I believe via my wife. I don't know where she's getting this money, but anyway,
it was your wife. It was all your wife.
She wagered $100 that you would not go headfirst through the splash pad, and I know you more than apparently she does, because you will always do that. When
I was like $100.
Yeah, let's go.
Like, I mean, come on. Like,
but not only did you execute it, it resulted in one of the best photos I've seen in a long time. Like
Megan's got some good photography
skills. And not only did you not pocket the money, which you could have, and bought some more Cody Road, you donated it to the We Will Collective Special Teams Fund to get a kicker, which we all appreciate.
I have no idea what I'm doing. See, this is why we need Aiden Wyatt here producing.
You just split screened me on the old YouTube.
Well, and now we got all kinds of stuff going. I got no idea. This is a disaster.
Hey, look on Williams' Twitter if you
guys are watching on YouTube. I'm so sorry. Like this is why I don't do this, and this is why,
I should have known better to put you on the spot like that.
Yeah, like this is why I pay people to do it. Yeah, like no, I cannot find a way to get a photo. I could play a video, but I can't find a way to get a photo up there. I'm sorry.
On the kicking front, though, here's a little scoop. You want a little scoop?
Yeah, I'm always looking for scoops.
Staff is super pumped for the new kicker, and it's not who you might think it might be. It's going to be a young fella by the name of Kyle Conrarty.
He's pretty good.
He's a walk-on from Dubuque, and the little scoop I got last week was that Kyle, by the end of last year, had actually been more consistent in practice from long range than Contreras was. In that, if Contreras wasn't a senior, they probably would have gone with Kyle at some point in that last 4 games, but they didn't want to bench Chase because he was a senior. But been kicking for only 2 years. He's got a monster leg, former soccer player. And let's just say that they're pretty high on Kyle Conrarty for this season.
Conrarty
okay. From Dubuque.
Yeah, that's one that we're going to have to...
You're going to have to get used to that one.
We'll have to get used to the pronunciation. I think I have this photograph. You got to give me a sec. Look.
Okay. Hey!
There it is. Well, okay. It's like over you and me, but there you go. You can see it. You can see it. Look at that.
Are you sure your back's not hurting from that feat of athleticism there?
Well, your lovely wife had texted me that saying inviting the girls over, and again, I'm not kidding, Bloom. I was in this basement at 7:30 this morning, and I have not left. Like it is all I have done today because, this basement is my livelihood. Like I literally I record down here, I write down here, I do everything down here, and I have been lost.
You're borderline, like you're gonna need to rent a space from Jeff Wood and Crab-A-Date co-working.
Oh,
like,
no doubt.
You are losing your mind.
Yeah, well, and it's a deal where it's like I have office space in Ankeny, and I go there 2-3 times a week
for sure.
But the thing is with my job is it's just not 9 to 5, right? Like I'm working at 11 o'clock at night. I learned a lot of times at 5 o'clock in the morning I'm working, right? And like you gotta have that.
Gotta have a space.
Yeah, and like it's good to start getting it back. And I
well,
don't
hey man,
like there's a lot of people who lost their homes, so like I'm not like this isn't a big deal. I don't want to, but that's all I've been doing today. So, but I heard it was a good recruiting day.
It was a great recruiting day. Fired up. The Iowa State football recruiting class is actually in a really good spot right now. It's June 9th, and they are about half full already, which is awesome. They got 10 commits now.
That's a big deal.
It's a huge really deal. And and Chris, I know what we always like to look at is it's not always the stars because the stars are outside of your top 75 guys. It's really hard to determine what is what. But if you look at the comparable offers, all 3 of the guys Iowa State got today had some Power 4 offers from regional in the neighborhood here. Beat out Iowa for a couple of them, beat out K-State for a couple of them. So you're doing a really good job of what Matt has really focused on now is put a tent over the 6-hour, window around Ames. Do as good as you can there. And we can go down each of these guys individually, 2 from the Midwest, and then dipped back into New Jersey for a player. A big time, a tall wide receiver who fits the body type that Iowa State likes. So, you either want those rangy, Hakeem Butler, Jaden Higgins, Alan Lazard types, or those Jalen Knoll, Eli Green types. This guy's on the longer end. So huge upside for him too. And a good track guy at that.
So then there was a third one, right?
So there's 2. So there's 2 Midwest guys. So we can pull up each name for you. So hold on. The defensive back,
Ryan the kid from Fort Osage, River Peppers.
He's the kid from the Kansas City area. Yep, he's a running back.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Sorry, I am not on the recruiting beat. This is all Connor Ferguson here. So I'm
so River's running back from Independence Mo. So again, Kansas City area. Picked Iowa State over
Kansas State's the big
Kansas
one, right?
State's the other big one. Yeah. Minnesota was there too. Iowa was sneaking around, and then Northwestern had offered as well. And Iowa State was pumped up to get him. And immediately, the Iowa State running backs coach put up a Christian McCaffrey gif. So that's, I think, the comp. Obviously on the extreme hyperbolic side, but dual threat guy, a lot like Carson Hansen. So think the Carson Hansen mold of dual threat, can run it, can catch it. But
I think he's going to have a bigger part of the offense than most casual fans think.
Well, your interview with Rocco was great.
Wasn't it telling?
Yes, it very much hinted. He brought him up on his own. That's when you know.
Yeah. I thought so too. Like Rocco's not one of those guys who's just listening to us all the time. Like
Correct.
He doesn't know that I'm obsessed with Carson Hansen.
He does not.
He has no clue. And he brought him up on his own like that and then, and you guys will hear it, the Taylor Mauser interview will be this week. So I'll have Mauser and Haycock this week. But
Awesome.
I absolutely pressed Mauser to go a little more air raid and get these running backs in the passing game, and he obliged. That was my. I think of the four that Rocco was pleasantly like awesome. I wasn't surprised, but it was so much fun. I wish I would have had more time with him.
Yeah, he's just great.
And then, but I think fans will probably get the most out of the Mauser interview just because he's not new. Like, we've had him on the pod before, but new in this role. And he was just so refreshing. And I told him
he was to the point of being too honest.
Yes,
I listened to part of the background. I was like, oh my gosh, good for you, Mouse.
So great. Yeah,
you guys will love him.
I said, please don't change.
He's going to earn a lot of fans with that because I think he was just refreshing is the right word. Very candid.
Awesome stuff.
So the other two recruits real quick. Let me just give the guys their love. Safety out of Glen Allen, Illinois. Name is Mason Ellens. Committed to Iowa State over Iowa and Boston College. Interestingly, he went to Glenbard West High School. He goes to Glenbard West High School, which I believe, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, is the high school of one John Walters, the Godfather.
Oh, Godfather.
From Glen Allen, Illinois. And then
it's good bloodlines right there, man. Drinking the same water as the Godfather.
If the Godfather is drinking that water, it's got to be good water. And then the other commit was the wide receiver out of New Jersey by the name of Karen Brookins, 6'5", 190 track guy. And again, Iowa State's got a couple really good receivers already in this class. He adds to the group along with the West Des Moines Valley kid and Zay Robinson. So if you look at it, and it's really early, C-Dub, but it's never too early for us on the Cyclone Fanatic podcast.
No.
Iowa State 10 commits, top 35 nationally in the 2025 recruiting class. And that is ahead of some schools like Iowa, for instance.
Of course.
So, for reference, so it just goes to show, though, I mean, everyone's going to start to softly write the obituary of schools like the Big 12, but don't buy it. Even with the whole pay-for-play, NIL era, relationships, culture, atmosphere all matters. People that care still matter. And Iowa State is more than holding its own in this next football recruiting class, which is a great sign for the future.
On that note, let's move into our Wiffles Hybrids Big 12 segment. Plant your independence, plant Wiffles.
We need to share that we're going to be at the new Ames facility for Wiffles during the Farm Progress show in August, and we're going to have some Cyclone athletes there. So
we will. Yeah,
you get excited for that.
All the specifics on that. Yeah, those will be coming up. Before we get into that, I do want to thank a couple more of our great sponsors who we wouldn't be here without. Of course, my guy Colin Newell. Don't be a fool. Don't be a fool. Get your insurance with Newell.
I golfed with Newell on Tuesday.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Kicked his ass.
Well, he did a great job with this here flood. I can tell you that.
Well, he's too busy working and not golfing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if I don't want my insurance guy to be like an ace golfer, I want him to be there working for me. I did say, so this is the God's honest truth. Colin came over and helped me swim out of this basement that day, and it was hella nice to have a Big 12 offensive lineman to help. You know how many books I have, right? Like hundreds of books in this, and I had to move them all. And Colin was just, picking up these boxes of books with just one arm. Like, he's just so massive. Yeah, they did a great job. Farm Bureau Financial Services. Couldn't recommend Colin enough. And also our friend Andrew Chaplin. Now, he's doing some real estate up there in Ames, and he's kicking butt. And Chappie is a big listener to the show, and we're really glad to have him, Brent, as a partner where we can, hopefully we like connecting people. That's the thing we like to do here on this show more than anything is connect not only our sponsors with one another, but our listeners with the sponsors. And I hope, if you're in the market for a house up in the Ames area, or really anywhere down in the Des Moines Metro,
all
Chappie's
Iowa.
Your guy. He's a huge Cyclone and big supporter of what we're doing here.
Yeah, especially for some of you younger Cyclones, you're kind of getting into that world. And gosh, it'd be hard to buy a house right now. Like, I feel for you for one, because man, what what a tough place. But if you're looking to upgrade or downgrade or whatever, you want to be able to trust a couple of people. You want to be able to trust your realtor, your insurance agent, and a car mechanic, because you don't want anybody to take advantage of you here. And I trust Chappie with everything I got. I mean, the guy's great. You can check some of his inventory out, andrew.hunsakerrealty.com, and you can just call him on a cell phone. This is the guy Chappie is. His cell phone number, 515-460-6454. And ask for Chappie, Andrew, whatever you want to call him.
Just call him Chappie.
And just call him Chappie. The guy's great. He'll drink an Ames lager with you at Welch Avenue Station, and super excited to have him as a partner with Fanatic going forward.
So we hit up the 3 commits. We'll tease for the rest of the program here. Brett Yormark is talking expansion again. We'll hit on that, and then we are going to look back. So it was kind of I don't want to say boring. It's not the right way to put it, but a quiet week, which is good. We like quiet in June. We are going to look back at the Meyer-to-Blythe game, the 42-14 win over Texas A&M in 2005. We're going to look back at that game. One of the great games, in my opinion, in the history of Iowa State football. We're going to do that in the third segment tonight.
So a couple other notes. Just again,
more notes.
New notes.
Okay.
So Alex Mansky, the quarterback committed this class. I'm basically a football recruiting expert now. Look at me. Had a huge camp with Iowa State when he was in town. Like, blew everybody away as expected. I mean, here's a guy he's an absolute stud, no doubt about it, from Algona. And
boy, Algona's got something in the water.
Oh my gosh! So Iowa State got Mansky and Jack Limbaugh, both from Algona. Not to mention Audie. I think different high school.
We got a lot going on in Algona.
Algona's just rocking it. Let's go.
We'll have like a road show up in Algona.
Let's go. We might as well just recruit some more players. But
man,
long story short, Mansky lived up to all the expectations. I think it's just a camp. It's just a camp. But I think the pipeline for Iowa State's quarterbacks are really good over the next 4 to 5 years.
That is football recruiting expert analyst Brent Blum.
It's good to at least know a little bit. If you're helping out on the NIL front.
Yeah, no, you should. If anybody should know it should be you. Brett Yormark was in Arizona this week and speaking with the Arizona Board of Regents. Of course, the 2 Arizona schools are coming to the Big 12. There a lot of fluff, from this. Just a lot of the stuff Yormark likes to say. We're going to be a national conference. We're going to be relevant and all this stuff. I took 2 notes away. One, preview. I'm going to ask Hassel about this tomorrow on 2 Guys too, because he's not a Cyclone homer like we are, and I want your honest opinion on this. I'll give you mine, and then we'll talk expansion after that. But so Yormark talks a lot about we want to be basically on par competitively with the Big Ten and the SEC. Here's my question. Is that even possible? Not that sure, it's possible that a Big 12 team can beat an SEC or Big 10 team. That's not my point. My point is the perspectives going forward, because maybe I'm being too pessimistic here. I think the rules have already been written when you look at how this playoff was drawn out revenue-wise. I don't think the Big 12 or the ACC are ever going to get a fair shake in this thing. But Yormark is, saying all the right things and fluffing all the right pillows. And, he sells it pretty good. If you read, it was Tucson.com, I think is where I read this.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Here's what I do think. And from a 10,000-foot view, the first answer is no. It's going to be really hard from a revenue standpoint, and all the good coaches are going to congregate over there, meaning the ones with the most money, because they're going to have more money. They just will. They're going to have more money. You can't catch them in money. But here's what nobody's thinking about. Somebody has to lose. Somebody has to lose,
no doubt,
in those leagues. And if you're all 7-5, 8-4, and my team in the Big 12 is 12-1, man, I think I have a pretty good argument to get in that large berth for the playoff. And so if there are, I guess what I'm saying is, from a top to bottom standpoint, it's going to be hard to know who's better, because they're not going to play each other a whole lot. And so when you're trying to decide who's the best conference, I don't know. I mean, the analytic numbers are going to be based on those two non-conference games because they're not gonna, nobody's going to play anybody else. And so I think it's going to be really interesting of how does it shape who is the better conference. You're going to have to wait until the playoff. So all that being said, if the Big 12 team does well in the playoff, it's only going to help its cause for the next year and the next year and the next year after that. Same with the NCAA tournament. I mean, those are the two barometers to decide who's a good conference or not. You even saw it this year. The analytics were far and away. The Big 12 is the best basketball conference. The Big 12 did okay in the tournament, not great. And everyone said, oh, the ACC was better because of the. And it's like, well, that not what the numbers said. So again, a lot of this will be determined what happens in the postseason, which was argued as like, I don't think that's a great way to determine that anyway. But if all these schools are losing, it's going to be hard for anybody to say, hey, a 6-6 Oklahoma is better than a 9-3 Iowa State. Like, that's not going to work. So as long as you're not, if you're even, then it's going to be hard to catch them. But if you're 2 games up in the win-loss column, I got to think you're going to have a chance based on the national media. But that's my third part here. The national media is going to.
I don't trust the national media.
They're going to give so much attention to those.
We've learned this. Like, we've been through this with the Big 12 missile crisis 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like, they're never going to give. I don't trust these people because you always have to follow the money in college football.
I think analytically, and if you just play a game 10 times, I think the Big 12 will be competitive with anybody. There's no question.
I agree.
It's the media perception of those folks just take the easy way out. And we saw it during the COVID year. They looked at Iowa State's loss to Louisiana, and they're just like, oh, you're done. And it's just like there's no critical thinking. They will not think outside the box. And so I agree with you. I really do. I think the fun, the entertainment level, the competition of the Big 12 will be as good throughout top to bottom as either of those conferences because the Big 12 doesn't have a really crappy team. Correct. But the attention will still be outsized with those two leagues. And when you start talking about the playoff, you got to think that those two leagues in particular will have 3 bids to the Big 12's 1. And so you hope you can maybe get to. I just wouldn't bank on it if I'm a Big 12 school that I'm getting more than 2 bids in any year going forward. I do see a world, unfortunately, where the SEC and the Big 10 will each get 3 to 4. And if you're doing the math, that's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're going to get those teams in, and they're going to say, "Oh, well, we're better because we got more teams in the playoff." Yeah. Well, it's like, well, but you're the ones who got all the attention to. So, yes, it's going to be an uphill battle from a perception standpoint. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth, though.
Well, and that's and we've seen that in college basketball where the bigger conference, when the Big 12 had 10 teams, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, you only got 7 in." Yeah, it's 70% of the
70%.
league.
Well, the other thing that you're going to get, I'm telling you, Chris, you're going to get up against it right away, is people are going to start using the financial figure as if that is the talent level. It's like, we paid more for our roster, so they must be better. It's like, no, Brent, that doesn't count.
I'm warning Iowa State fans listening to this. And I don't think I'm like a doomsday guy either. Like I'm on record. I think that this new setup is going to be better for Iowa State than at any point in the past. Okay? I want to say that. I also don't think the majority of Iowa State fans even are very loyal listeners. Just based on the correspondence I've had with people on social media and in person, I don't think most people are prepared for the screw job that's coming.
Starting December 1.
Yeah, like I think that there's probably some collusion between the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, I have no proof of that, but like the way it's setting up, like these two leagues have been at war for 50 years.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're like forming advisory groups together and stuff like.
It's true.
They're going to try and take this thing over, like, and they probably already have. And if that's the case, like I don't even know what the college football playoff committee is this year. Is it the same thing? Like, is it set up the same way?
I think so, and that's
There's
where you
no
hope.
way they're not in the bag of those two. And again, it goes back to our point why we didn't want ESPN to be the exclusive television partner of this thing. It's just, it smells, man. Like I think the Big 12 and the ACC, probably not the ACC, depends. It feels like they still have those marquee names, in
Clemson and
Florida
Florida
State and
State.
Clemson. But
Yeah.
beyond that, no. But like it feels like those two leagues are going to be getting one bid, two max. Like I don't see a scenario where this Big 12's ever getting three in ever.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, but and they're going to stop scheduling us too. Is the other thing. They're going to stop scheduling the Big 12 type teams because again they're trying to keep it all to themselves.
That's what the problem is. I was talking to somebody this week. It's like the second biggest game on maybe the third biggest game on Iowa State's schedule could even be the biggest game on Iowa State's schedule is that game in Iowa City, because that is a perception game.
Absolutely,
it's a huge game for the Big 12 too. This
no
isn't
doubt.
just an Iowa State. It's like Iowa State for the Big 12. That's a game that Iowa State has to win to help out the narrative a little bit.
This is it really is when the American Conference is basketball, right? Where you get Dayton's in Maui. Okay, that's a big that affects the numbers for that entire league for the rest of the year. If Dayton can beat North Carolina and Iowa State in Maui, that entire league gets a boost from it. That's exactly what this is.
And to that point, now more than ever, you better root for your conference mates out of conference. You just have to. You might be you may not want to root for K-State.
Yeah, hold your nose and root for Baylor.
Yeah, you have to, because we're not talking about 4. I mean, when it was 4 teams, it's like, well, that's going to be really hard to get into anyway. 12 is realistic. There is going to be a Big 12 team that gets in, and maybe a second. Could be a second. Maybe a third. We'll see. But you better do well in the non-conference, because it's just like basketball. The strength of your league is determined by some of those non-conference matchups. You cannot afford to lose some of those bad ones like the Big 12 did last year, to be quite frank. Iowa State was one of those with that loss to Ohio. The losses like that look really bad. And so not only do you have to worry about Iowa State sweeping the non-conference, but if you want an at-large berth in the college football playoff, you better help your compatriots all win in the non-conference as well. And so that'd be an exercise to do at some point, maybe do it Wednesday. Look through the premier non-conference games for the Big 12, because there's probably a dozen or so that will really dictate, what people think of this league.
Yeah, I don't trust them.
I don't trust them either.
It all smells. And again, there could be worse scenarios here. The Big 12 could have blown it. This is not doomsday. I want to prepare, because the Big 12's had a perception problem when Texas and Oklahoma were in it.
True.
Yeah,
I want to do a deep dive on the committee members as well.
It doesn't matter. Like they're like
Mac Rhodes is on it. Mac Rhodes is on the committee.
Okay, well that helps a little, because he's pretty.
He's the Baylor AD.
Yeah, he's kind of
else.
He's kind of.
Who else we got? Gary Pinkel. Remember Gary?
Gary Pinkel. What's he doing now?
Well, he's on the committee, I guess.
It's an old school Big 12 guy.
That's right.
Yeah. What a run Gary Pinkel had, by the way.
Crazy.
That was a great job by those ADs to not fire him when he was like 5-7 all those times, and then he all of a sudden he hit his
put it together.
Yeah,
good job. The 2007 year, 2007
was that the Kansas,
Missouri year was
top 5 game.
Unbelievably crazy down in Kansas City.
Yeah,
and then both fell off the map 2 years later. Just wild.
That was the year. Didn't Chiswick's team basically give up like 16 yards per carry at Kansas State that year? Like, didn't Arnaud throw for like 8 touchdowns or something like that, and Iowa State just couldn't stop the run?
Yes.
Is that the same year?
I believe
that Rob McFarland.
I believe that was the next
humming.
year. I believe that was the next year.
Whatever. That Robert McFarland offense was just humming down there, and that freaking Wayne Bolt defense could not catch a cold, man. Like, it was brutal. It was brutal. I remember I about drove my truck off the road driving back. I had called a game in Mound City, Missouri that Saturday morning of that game, and I was so pissed off listening to Walters, Heft, and Bruns from that game.
Yeah,
that
because
Kansas State game.
Arnaud threw for a bunch. In fact, we're gonna. This is the reason. It's a good segue, C-Dub, because we're gonna talk about the Todd Blythe game, 2005, against Texas A&M. So real quick, the passing yardage leaders for Iowa State in a single game. That game where Iowa State lost at K-State, but it wasn't even that close. But let's see here. Let's pull this up. Arnaud's 440.
Yes. Okay, good. My memory's good.
Was the school record until the bowl game against Memphis when Rocco threw for 446, which everyone forgets about. Yeah. He set the school record in that game.
That's crazy.
But you're right. That Arnaud game was 08, and that was the one, and it wasn't even that close.
Isn't it funny how our memories work? Like, you just brought up that one season, and I was so pissed at that game. I was so mad.
I believe that was Chizik's last game. It was.
No kidding.
It was. That was his last game as the Iowa State coach. That game.
Good.
Yep. It was on Fox. It was on Fox College Sports, so not many people could watch that one.
That was the old Sam Steele network.
That was the Sam Steele
Remember
network.
Sam Ponder? Previously Sam Steele. She would always come on pregame with me and Tron.
That's right.
Yeah, she was a really nice gal back then.
She was.
And then she blocked me. And speaking of Arnaud,
it all comes back to Arnaud.
So Arnaud's over at my house, and we're watching the Vikings. He's a big Vikings fan. This is a couple, 3-4 years later, and Arnaud and I are, we're having a few pops, drinking a few Ames lagers before Ames Lager was Ames Lager.
Got it.
And may have fired off a few tweets about Christian Ponder sucking. And she blocked us both on Twitter that night.
Well, and you were right. Let the record.
I mean, come on. Like, come on, Sam. Like, text us and be like, hey, knock it off. Like, we had a good relationship. But then just blocked us.
I think our guy Arnaud's coming back in a couple weeks for our alumni reunion.
Oh, for the alumni deal, yeah.
Yeah, we have a who's who of quarterbacks coming back. It's going to be awesome. I'm excited about it.
Man. That sounds like a hell
you can come
up.
We'll invite you.
Well, your wife already did.
Okay. Well, she's now paying you and inviting you to stuff. I'm gonna start asking questions.
I didn't get paid anything. I put it into the kicker fund. And if this walk on from Dubuque is as good as you say is, give him the 100. Like,
okay,
just
got it.
Kyle's
coming your way, pal.
Just tell him he can keep it. Say it's from my neighbor who's frustrated with kicking woes over the last 50 years. Okay. He's a Vikings and a Cyclones fan.
Yes, simple enough, Kyle.
Good stuff. All right. Thank a couple more sponsors here, and then I want to get into the Big 12 expansion talk.
Yeah.
Kelderman Manufacturing, Kelderman.com, where you can go and check out today I'm going to promote all the great suspension work that he can do with your trucks. I told the story a couple weeks now of my friends who, from over at Plaza RV, they sold a motorhome, one of those camper vans, to a patron who then took it down to Oskaloosa to Kelderman Manufacturing, and they gave it a souped-up suspension so it gave a better ride down the interstate. Kelderman.com. He's a good friend of mine and a great supporter of what we're doing here at Cyclone Fanatic. And last but certainly not least, the Ivy College of Business at Iowa State. And it is the time of year. A lot of you are sitting outside. You got some time to think. Maybe you're thinking about going back and getting that MBA. I would encourage you to look up our friends at the Ivy College of Business. You can do it all online. You can take your time. It's a good investment in yourself, maybe your spouse. Think about it and remember that we sent you there here on Cyclone Fanatic. Bloom, how many Ames lagers did you drink this weekend to contribute to the cause?
Oh, man. Enough. Let's just say that. I had a few. I played.
Is that a good golf beer? I mean, I don't think I've golfed. I don't think I've golfed since Ames Lager has even been a thing.
No,
that's the last time I've golfed.
It really is twofold. One, crisp, light, refreshing, which you can't beat on a golf course. Like I'm not pounding an IPA on the golf course. Like
you're not having that Westo Cocoa Stout.
I'm not. I know it's a great beer. That is it's
an elite winter beer.
That's a post dessert beer, but So yes, I had a few, and then I played the Harvester on Friday.
Oh, look at this guy.
I know. Elitist here.
You're never quitting this job.
Single most difficult course I've ever played in my life. And so I needed like a dozen after that.
You never been to Vinker?
Trust me, Vinker's a challenge for me too.
Vinker is brutal.
Chris, honestly, if you would play the Harvester, I mean this as your friend, you wouldn't make it. You would not make it through the 18.
No, Brent, I would quit.
You would not make it. Yeah, you probably stop in the first 3 holes. It is.
Is it long or is it tight?
It's long. It's not tight necessarily, but there's trouble everywhere. And then the greens are just, honestly, they're a shit show. Like, you, in a good way. Like, kudos to them. Kudos to them. I had 5 4 putts.
That's where I thrive. I'm a putter.
Well, man, I should bring you with. You can just putt for me. But some of the Harvester, craziest thing, they have caddies that go with you, and like, I'm not good enough.
That sounds horrible. I don't need a caddy.
No, but it's in a good way. So you're in the cart.
I don't want a caddy. I don't want some guy following me around.
They don't follow you around. This is the beauty of it. They go 200 yards in front of you, and then they find your ball for you because you're going to lose your ball. Yeah. And then they do the distances for you, and they read your putts. So
Is it like the guy on Happy Gilmore that he finds in the parking lot, like one of them kids?
Actually, the kid we had was a high school senior, and he's awesome. Great guy. Other than he's a hawk, but we gave him shit for that, and all good. And then his tip was a little bit less because he said he was a hawk. But anyway, great time. But yes, I drank a couple Ames lagers that evening after that was done because I was a little bit mentally fried.
You live such a tough life right now. I tell you, you poor bastard. Everybody listening right now is just, they feel so bad for Brent Blum. All right. So Yormark hints at more expansion at this Arizona Board of Regents. I don't want to overplay this. I mean, he was asked a question.
Yeah.
And he basically said when the time is right. And I believe wholeheartedly he is talking about when the ACC implodes. The Big 12 feels like it is in a better spot stability-wise. And I completely agree with it.
There's no question they're better than the ACC right now.
Yes. So, I think that's what Yormark means. I think the only thing I would really find interesting is which way do you go? Because you do have the Cal Stanford situation, and I don't know if that's a good fit. I can't see that, but they do have some geographical partners out there. Like, to me, if the Big 12 is going to expand, you go get Louisville, get Pitt, to pair with West Virginia, go and I would like to see that type of an expansion. You can get to 20. I'm not crazy about any of this. People know my opinions. Either. Like, I want this stuff to be as regional as, but that's why, like, I'd like to get the backyard brawl in the Big 12. It's cool to have the Holy War. Like, if you're going to do this, go out and get some of these ones, like NC State and Duke. Let's go. Bring them on. Like,
yeah.
Stuff like that. Like, do ones that make sense. Like, I just think that if you get Stanford and Cal, like, everybody's just going to hate them, and it's just going to be this disaster. Like, I don't think you need it. Maybe bring SMU in if they're putting all that money into it in the future. I don't know. Just make it make sense.
What I would say is the Big 12's not going to do anything until Clemson and Florida State figure their stuff out.
Yes.
Like, this is not going to be a poaching situation. The Big 12, I think they're pretty much out on Connecticut now. As far as
seems like it.
They're out on Gonzaga.
And the Gonzaga thing sounds like it's no longer too.
Yep, agreed. And so I don't think you're just going to go add a San Diego State or a UNLV just because you're just going to dilute the pot. The pot's already getting diluted enough right now, and everybody needs money. I mean, that's the thing here is unless it tears up the TV contract, you don't do it because what we've talked about it on here, but it has not gotten enough play by anybody. The Big 12 had a record payout last week for this year, but the TV revenue isn't going up with the 4 new schools. So you're splitting that up 4 new ways. And then those 4 new schools this year took half this year. They're getting more of a share this year. So you're going to break it up even more. So every school is going to take, based on TV revenue alone, I mean, you're down like $8 to $10 million next year from this year. And that's not even to mention the whole compensation part we talked about for 6 months of the players. So as far as expansion, you better be dang sure you're getting more TV revenue or it's a survival play. Like those are the only two reasons. It's a
Yes,
survival play or it's more money from TV.
and that's why the ACC took the West Coast schools. It was because they had a pretty good feeling. I think that Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, potentially Virginia were,
Looking
getting
behind
the hell
them.
out of there.
Yeah, they're looking over there.
And it was a numbers thing.
Yep.
And then you have SMU saying, well, we don't need any TV revenue.
Oh, that's a win. Yeah, if they would do that to the Big 12, I'd sign them up tomorrow.
Which is, that's insane. But that's what happens when you have a bunch of rich Methodist oil guys that SMU has that just bought them into the league.
They did. They literally
I don't know how else to put it. Like that's what happened. Again, like this isn't like our conversations last year. We had a pretty damn good feeling that was happening last year, and it ended up happening in August. The vibe, behind the scenes felt like, unless you were that blogger out in Oregon, or what was that guy?
Whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah,
he was so wrong.
There were like 3 or 4 media guys that were just hell bent. This is not happening. It doesn't. I don't know if Stu was doing that, or
has Stu apologized yet?
No, still don't get the thank you note either. Right. It's a damn shame, but it's okay. He's a busy man.
He's busy.
Yeah, he lives out in California. They got all that stuff to do. They can go to the ocean.
He's not thinking about us.
They have better weather than we do. They have more money. It's a higher end way to live your life. But my point being, I'm with you. Like this isn't like bubbling right now, but
no.
I don't see a way out of this for the ACC. I don't.
Yeah, it just depends on how ironclad that contract is.
I don't even but even if it is,
but if it's maybe it's a 10-year window, then
there's going to be some sort of a fine. Then like all their boosters will end up buying them out 5 years from now.
Correct.
And again, we're like the ACC is owned by ESPN, which is fascinating. Like ESPN owns every tier of their rights that they like farmed out the CW or whatever they did last year.
Here's an interesting question as a Big 12 fan. Do you want the ACC to do well in a playoff this year?
Because they should be like your brother, because they're on the same level.
They're kind of on the same. Yeah, I mean, if another.
I'll tell you what, Brent, they don't see the Big 12 as
they
on
do
their
not.
level.
I know.
So
I 100%.
No, I would root for them to lose.
Because the sooner they lose, if they only get one team in as well, and then they lose, you better realize that Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina will get us as long as they struggle there and they don't get in the playoff, they're going to be thinking it's a conference problem, not a them problem.
Do you remember when it was like the Big 12 versus the Pac-12 and everybody just bitched? That's how the ACC thing's going to end up.
I think you're right.
Except they don't have like the loud, obnoxious fans they do on the basketball side, but football wise, like, I mean, when do we ever hear from Florida State fans?
Well, it's a good point. And so here's what I wanted to hit on a little bit tonight. And I think it's going to make some people uncomfortable in the next 18 months. But you're going to see all of these schools, but also then the conferences really try and get creative with generating more revenue. And you saw it this week a little bit of the corporate logos on the jerseys. And everyone's going to permit now corporate logos on the field. The Big 12 rule up until this year was you could have the corporate logo on the field or on the floor if it was as part of a naming rights deal with the stadium in football, at least. So that's why Mid-American Energy can be on the field. Obviously, the Pioneer logo is on there for basketball. The point is, this is going to become much more the norm, just like professional sports. You're going to start seeing little nickel and diming for you as a fan. You are. You might get charged more by an ESPN Plus, by the way, because they got to raise more money. It's not a mystery, but the Big 12 basketball tournament is going to start charging seat licenses for the best seats going forward. It's going to be hard to get a really premier seat for the Big 12 football championship. And that's why the whole Mexico thing, and I'm sure Yormark will look to do other games somewhere else. It's also why I would be hesitant if you're a fan right now to really get upset if the Big 12 goes all in on wanting to expand the college football playoff for one, but also the NCAA tournament.
That's absolutely going to happen.
It is, because again, you need more money, and what
Mm-hmm.
generates the most money? The NCAA tournament. And so if you're the Big 12 and you go, well, shoot, now we're X amount behind, how do we do that? Well, if your basketball league is really good and you can expand it to get now 10 teams in or 12 teams in, that's another share for the whole league. It then split up even more.
And then
And
the way that works is the farther the teams go, you make more money.
you make more, right? And so I think, from an ACC and the Big 12 are going to be in the same standpoint of they're going to want expansion for both of those things. And as a fan base, as fans of the sport in general, I get why we don't want it. I don't think it makes for a better product at all. But if you want to catch those other two conferences financially, you do have an advantage of two of the better basketball leagues right now in the ACC and the Big 12. And I don't think that's going to slow down. Look at what the Big 12 did in the portal. It is insane. Like
Even
Texas pulled another top 30 guy this week. So if that tournament goes
Kansas
to,
State's getting a guy too.
they
the
are,
Illinois guy.
they're probably getting Coleman Hawkins. Yep. So if you get to, I don't even know what that number would be.
God, I don't want to see
Maybe,
that guy again. But go
well,
ahead. Sorry.
yeah. Well, they're gonna. Yeah. Anyway,
Tang will screw it up.
they're taking care of them. But yes. You're talking about, could you get 80%, 90% of your league in, and then how far do you go? That could be a huge revenue boost for a league that is going to be behind the other two leagues in revenue. And I think that's where Yormark is coming from. It's not from a, hey, this is great for the game of basketball standpoint, in my opinion.
No, you're spot on. You're
And
spot on.
so I'm telling you guys, you're gonna, not only is Iowa State gonna start charging you more, and they need to, they really do. It's just like, you're complaining about your parking now. It's only going up. It's only going up.
It's math.
You got to start thinking more, and I don't, whether you like it or not, of this being more of a professional sports situation than the 1980s and the 1990s in college athletics.
Speaking of that, the RV Village sold out,
Awesome.
according to Jamie Pollard, which is amazing.
The word got out.
Wow, it's the best. It's the best thing about Iowa State athletics, in my opinion. I'm biased because I like to do it, but it's literally my favorite thing about Iowa State athletics right now is that Friday night before the game. Now I'm different because I'm working on Saturday, so like I come at it from
you could actually enjoy that evening.
But the camaraderie that you
great.
build with these people, and it's awesome. Like I love it so much. So I was happy to see that. And I was sad because I'm clearing the back, and I like being in the back because it was not as many
people around you now.
Now there's going to be people everywhere, but that's okay. More the merrier.
It's interesting though. You sold out June 9th, or whatever. I guess it was June 6th when they announced that. Do you try and convert some of those other lots to an RV type thing, or do you do even? I would be interested in the feedback from fans. The way that professional sports make money, and I know and I worked for the Magic for a couple years, is those elite premier seating experiences. So, and parking experiences, and basically how can you get people to spend more money that have more money? And I do think there's a world where Iowa State needs to start charging that top end donor even more, and give them perks. And that's why you're going to see Johnny's expanded into something else. And that might be even more premier. Maybe Iowa State looks into even more seating courtside, or I don't know. You're just, unfortunately for your everyday fan, I'm sorry. I really am. Because it's not, don't expect things to become more reasonably priced over the next 10 years. Because the Iowa States of the world have a big deficit to make up. That is not your fault, but it is what it is.
God. I just wanted to talk Meyer-to-Blythe.
Real quick on that. So we're going to do a game real quick, and we'll wrap it up here.
Well, can I give real quick the inspiration to this?
Yes. I'm going to do a game with you.
Okay, I want to give credit where it's due. So I was, now all these things, these Twitters, all these algorithms are just targeted towards you, right? Well, of course, like the target I get, on Saturday morning is frickin' Meyer-to-Blythe, right? Like, what else? If you're Twitter, what else are you gonna target Chris Williams towards? Two Stripes CPD. I don't know what they are. It says a college football website for people who actually like college football. They have 223 followers. And they tweeted out, and again, this thing just lands in my freaking lap. They tweet out, thinking about that time, Iowa State wide receiver Todd Blythe had 8 catches for 214 yards and 4 touchdowns against Texas A&M. And I responded, I said, I think about this like 3 times every day. It might be it's up there for
one of my favorite games ever.
Yeah, one of my favorite games. I mean, like the Baker Mayfield game, I think is probably, like there's iconic ones. This is right up there though.
I agree.
What do you got for me? You're gonna play a quiz game?
Well, so interestingly, that is still the only game an Iowa State receiver had 4 touchdowns or more receiving. So still first in that.
Really?
Okay, but let's play a game.
Wow.
Let's play a game based on that game. We're going to do, C-Dub, can you name the top 10 single-season receiving yards leaders in Iowa State history? Who had the most yards receiving in a single season in Iowa State history? This is not career. This is 1 year. 1 year receiving yards.
Tracy Henderson's on that list.
Tracy Henderson is number 4 at 1,051 yards in 1983. That was a hard one, so good job.
Yeah, well, I've studied this list.
Yeah.
So Lazard.
This actually surprises me a little bit. Lazard is on here twice. He is 5th for 1,018 in 2016. And then he is 10th with 941 in 2017.
Hakeem Butler.
Hakeem Butler, number 1 on the list. Did you guys know that? Hakeem Butler.
Man, he was really freaking good in 17 or
18.
18. Okay, yeah.
He had 1,318 yards receiving that year. He cleared second place by 200 yards.
Wow.
Hakeem the Dream.
That's
now
Blythe, right? Blythe would be.
Blythe, this is what surprised me. Blythe is 6th. Blythe is 6th with 1,000 yards in 2005.
Is my guy Lane Danielson on the list?
Lane Danielson's on the list. Lane Danielson 3rd with 1,073 in 2002.
So I've got like 70% of the list here.
So you've got, hold on, you've got 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 and 10.
So I don't have number 2?
You don't have number 2. You don't have number 7. You don't have number 8.
Well, I'm missing a big one then.
You're missing 2 biggies.
You know.
Do you want a hint?
Yeah, I'm blanking here. This is embarrassing.
This is not embarrassing because you're probably thinking way too hard. This is this is in the last 4 years. Both these gentlemen, both in the last 4 years.
Just tell me.
Number 2.
I get all these rosters mixed up. Like,
all good.
I'm old.
Number 2 and number 7, Xavier Hutchinson.
Oh shit! Yeah.
He had 11.
So stupid.
Yeah,
literally the guy right in front of you.
Yeah, 1171 in 22, and then he also had 987 in 2021.
Is Jones freshman year? He's got to be.
He is not on there. He's on the career list. He is not in the single season list.
I was going to say he was one I was poking around in my brain. I was thinking too far back.
You were. Last year. Last year there was somebody who was in the top 10 all time, which I bet people didn't realize. Higgins.
Yeah, Higgins, man, he racked up the stats in
the
last 6 games. Yeah.
Huge. He ended up 8th all time with 983.
So really, it's all in the last, because we didn't see passing at Iowa State really until 2002. Really, I mean, back at like those Sage teams, like they just
Sage didn't throw it a bunch. Bandauer threw it a bunch. They just weren't very good. He threw it to the other team a lot, and it wasn't his fault all the time, by the way.
Like the thing when you're doing this stuff, like the tempos were so much
totally
slower.
different.
Like it was hard to rack up a ton of yards back then.
So real quick, just to put a bow on this, Todd Blythe 2nd all time in single receiving yards in a game with that 214. Guess who tied him in the bowl game against Memphis? Jaden Higgins had 214 yards receiving.
I think Higgins, honestly, like I was watching Butler tonight.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. Like this sounds crazy. I think Higgins may be the best pro wide receiver Iowa State's going to produce in this 15-year run.
I don't think that's crazy at all.
Because like Lazard has overachieved based on his draft status.
Yes.
But I think we've maybe seen the best of Allen. We'll find out. Like, we'll see if he bounces back with Rodgers this year, how that plays out. It's still crazy to me that Hakeem Butler can't find a spot.
I hope he gets another look. And, man, tough one for the Battlehawks tonight. The run ended.
Xavier is going to have a long NFL career. I think. Yep. I think Higgins is the high-end best. I thought Butler would be better. Okay?
Yes. I agree with that.
Yeah, Butler surprised me that he didn't make it. I think if you look at the last 5-6 games of last year and what we've heard about projections, I think Higgins is going to be the best wide receiver Iowa State produces in the NFL.
Look. I'm just looking at his numbers. Right, he had an unbelievable year. He really did.
But they all came like in the last 5, 6, 7 games. Like, it was wild.
Yeah, and he had. Well, the other one good game he had was, against Iowa. He was the offense for most of the game. Just throw it up to that guy, and he makes the plays. He had 8 for 95. But you're right. He had 6 for 172 at Cincinnati, 7 for 104 against Texas, 9 for 214 against Memphis. Those are some decent schools too. I agree. I think the nation is sleeping on that guy. And to think, C-Dub, and this is what makes me feel good, he was a FCS guy coming in last year.
Yeah.
And his numbers and Eli Green's numbers were way better than Higgins were coming out of FCS.
Stay tuned to the Mauser interview because I talk about Hutchinson, Higgins, and like what is it about these lower level transfer wide receivers that you guys see? And we talk about Eli Green because I was like, I go, normally I'd be kind of like, oh, okay, let's see this thing play out. But this is where their track record's really good at this particular position coming up a level. So there you go. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
The summer series coming up.
One other a couple fun notes. Did you know Rocco Becht had the second best year all time last year with most touchdown passes in a season?
I did not. No.
Second only to Purdy as a sophomore. And as far as single season passing yards, how about this? Purdy's first in 19. Seneca is second in 02. Purdy is third in 21. Guess who's fourth? Mr. Rocco. Fourth all time. Fourth all time in yards, second all time in touchdowns as a freshman.
He's going to have better career numbers than Purdy.
So that's what I was projecting. I didn't think it was possible. It's possible.
I think you will because I think that this offense is just going to be more wide open too. Like as far as passing the football goes.
That's what's crazy is, I was Becht threw for 31-20 and 23 touchdowns, and a lot of people are like, yeah, that offense wasn't very good.
Think about the 21 team though, like you're playing 2 tight ends half the time.
True. Yeah, so it was
largely built for Breece Hall. And, and Brock is a massive part of it, but you had a first-round draft pick at running back too.
Yep.
And, hopefully they have that quote-unquote problem coming up here. But I'm just saying, I think numbers-wise and when you look at the offense now, that Rocco has a shot.
He does. I didn't think it was possible when Brock left, but, yeah, just do the math. That's what's amazing is this offense with a lot of young talent had statistically a really good season last year individually. Now, not great game to game, and I think that's what's hard to measure. I mean, there are some teams that you knew you're going to have it every game. You can't just have some games like Iowa State did throughout the year, like Ohio. The Kansas game offensively was okay. But there's some games in there that weren't great. But I think this year, with everybody back, after putting up those numbers as a freshman with the quarterback, my goodness, get excited.
These are my favorite shows where we're talking about how there's nothing to talk about and we're an hour in and we still haven't even got to the one topic I really wanted to hit, which was this A&M game.
It was a good game.
So listen, I just wanted to run down some stats from this thing.
Here we go. Yeah, go. Sorry.
So Blythe averaged 26.8 yards per reception in that game, which is just Wild. I wanted to give a shout out to my buddy Austin Flynn. He had 6
Yeah.
catches in
Yep.
his home state for 69 yards. Remember big Walter Nickel?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He had 2 catches, each for 24 yards in that game. Walter Nickel did, the big man. And then this is what I don't remember from this game.
Just real quick, and again, then you're bringing up some old names, but just the sad part is, I don't know if you know this, but Walter Nickel passed away 2 years ago.
I did not know.
Yeah, and so I mean that's
God, there's so many of these.
There's so many guys from that's what I'm saying from that same era, and I know you're gonna get to one. You're gonna get to another one right now.
Yeah, a good buddy of mine, Stevie. I didn't remember Stevie Hicks running for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game.
Yep, he was great, and he picked up every blitz possible. He was so good that game. Stevie was.
Man, what were you doing in that? I don't know about you, but
these
games
100%.
in the I can tell you exactly where I was. I was at Ryan Hillary's. We had a deal, and then we went and partied, and we were just going crazy at Legends after it because he lived there. Yeah. What about you? Where were you at that day?
I was at my brother's condo in Clive and just going nuts. I was going nuts, and I believe the Cardinals played later that night, St. Louis Cardinals in the playoffs. But and then I wrote a column. I'll have to link this on my Twitter. I wrote a column in the Daily the next Tuesday, and I said that was the best football game I've ever seen.
Your guy, Greg Coleman, he had 34 yards in that game.
Well, Meyer had 360 some, right?
Meyer threw for 371 and 4 touchdowns.
There you go. They couldn't stop him. They could not stop.
Still he wasn't very accurate. 20 of 32.
What the hell, Meyer?
QB rating was under 100, Brett. So, just saying, brother. Just saying.
That was a fun one. That was one of those all timers, and because nobody.
What a night.
Was Iowa State probably a 12-point dog?
That was the same day. It was the same day. It was which coach was it? It was either Bill Callahan or Bo Pelini. I think it was Bill Callahan. Remember when they did the cutthroat thing across the sideline? I think they were playing Oklahoma.
Yes.
Everybody went crazy. This is back in 2005. You couldn't do stuff like that back then.
That year, oh my gosh, that was a time right there.
I could write a whole book on that season.
Well,
jeez,
I would want 3 chapters on Drew Tate concussing himself to remove himself from the game. We're an hour and 3 in. Hey, if you're an Iowa fan and you heard that, please tweet about it because you made it through an hour and 3-minute podcast on Cycle Fanatics.
This has been one of the most sicko Iowa State pods we've ever done. The diehards loved this episode.
He got a concussion. I don't see that lightly, but and then Jason Manson.
Carper got a pick in that game.
Yeah, Carper got a pick, and then it was LaMarcus 6 had the pick 6.
I'm pretty sure I took my shirt off when Carper got that pick. I was celebrating. Mayor.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it was.
It was hot. It was a hot, windy game.
It was a hot sumbitch. Yeah. It was.
All
right. Well, this was pleasant. This was a pleasant podcast tonight. I really enjoyed this one. I needed this after this day of floodwaters and whatnot.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm here to help.
No, you haven't helped one bit. This thing has been going on for like 3 weeks. You have not lifted your finger.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to help from a physical labor standpoint. I'm here to take your mind off the physical labor through discussions about Gene Chiswick's last year.
Well, again, I love it. It's a passion of mine to do.
Where were you when? Yes.
Oh, I love it.
I bet.
You give me an Iowa State football game since 2003, since 2002. In the last 22 years, we'll say 20 years, I will tell you what I did the night of that game. I can do any of them.
I'm with you. And so on that note,
doesn't matter how bad the team, I can tell you exactly what I did.
Tweet at us where you were for the 05 A&M football game.
And
I want to know where you were.
We're going to find out the real sickos who are still here.
See if you remember
it. Yes.
Please let us know.
There's going to be more of them than we
because you sons of guns remember the same thing. I know you do. You know where you were.
Sickos. Yeah. Just disgusting people. Our people.
Our people.
All right. I guarantee Clover at Mechdyne's listening right now.
There's no doubt. He knows where he was.
Ryan Burchett over at Cody Robe is probably like Cy back then. He's probably running around drunk in that Psy outfit, drinking bourbon before he even knew he'd be making it
It's
someday.
allowed. He's doing the weather, I'm sure, actually, in 05.
Yeah,
He's
he
probably doing
was.
the
He
weather.
was. And his daughter, by the way, he told me she did decide to go to Iowa State. She was deciding between Iowa State and Marquette.
Ooh.
And I was like, Jesus, Brian, like you can't send your daughter to Marquette.
I like Marquette. They were the farm factory there for a while.
They were. I forgot about that.
It was just like one guy after another.
They were St. Bonaventure before St. Bonaventure was.
They were the Bonnies before the Bonnies.
Yeah. All right. Have
Thanks,
a great week. We will be here on Wednesday, Williams and Blum Wednesday. We'll have a new episode of Kicking It coming up as well with Grant Mahoney and Jeff Woody. We also have 2 new summer series pods with the football program coming up this week. It will be John Haycock, defensive coordinator, Taylor Mauser, offensive coordinator. I sat down with them last week, and I believe it's time for another Ivy College of Business business podcast as well with Jacqueline Cordova. I don't know what she has cooking for this week, but we'll continue to break down the world of sports business as it pertains to Iowa State athletics. For Brent Blum, I'm Chris Williams. Have a great work week, everyone.